guys, this is your Millennial Tube today with Hal Watts from Knyttan. And we really wanted to speak to those guys because we admire the beautiful marriage between fashion and technology that they brought about. Hal,
Hi.
how are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Yes, very good. Thank you very much for joining us.
No
and
problem.
I can see you're wearing one of your jumpers.
Yeah,
one of
absolutely.
your very, very
Yeah,
nice jumpers.
it's
I can
merino
touch,
wool.
huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Merino wool,
Yeah.
that's very, very nice.
Thank you.
Can you tell us a bit more about your product?
So what we've developed is a new way of controlling the machines that make everybody's clothes. So at the moment, the way the machines work means that you have to produce everything in quite large volumes. But with our system, we can produce a one-off product at a similar cost to what it would cost if you had a mass-produced product. And that means we can let everybody be involved in the creation of their clothes and have something that is unique to them and is really what they want, not just what is on offer in a shop.
So coming from that, how do you see millennial coming into all of this?
Mm-hmm.
What is the definition of millennial to you? And is it just about the demographic for you?
I think millennials is not just about a demographic. I think it's also about a level of information that we expect. So the fact that we're all connected all the time and that we've had access to this level of information means that we begin to expect it from all of our products, not just being able to go on Wikipedia and search for something. You also want to know how did your jumper get to this place? Why does it look like this? Who made it? And what the impact of it has been. And I think generally it's a group of people who expect transparency and they expect to be able to find these facts if they want them.
And what are the main millennial traits of Knyttan, would you say? How would you classify them?
I think there's an element of having something that's personal to you. I think millennials are particularly looking for experiences rather than the traditional aspirations of our parents' generations. We want to have experiences that are incredible, and I think part of that is also reflected in what we buy, and we put more importance on great experiences, which is one of the reasons I think companies like Apple have been so successful, is the experience of use is very high. And we try to reflect that in the products we create as well. We want the customer to be very involved in not just buying a product, we want them to also be involved in the creation of it, so that they feel a much stronger attachment to it.
What was the biggest trigger for you to start it, and how did it all begin?
So we actually started it because we were doing some consultancy work for the UK Sport, which is the tech arm of the UK Olympic team, and they were interested in how they could make more performance clothing for athletes. And we realised that there was an industry where the machinery, the hardware was really advanced, but that the software and the systems in place didn't really meet the needs of a younger generation of people who want something that's different. And really everything was set up to make things in batches of 10,000s. Whereas today, to be responsive and to be able to change what you're doing all the time, you need to be able to produce much smaller volumes of products. And I think that's was one of the driving motivations for us to start looking at this.
And I guess when you started, was it a surprise that the reception was so great, or how?
I don't think the
reception.
the reception wasn't that great. I mean, so we found an industry that's quite divided. I mean, for an industry that thinks of itself as very forward-thinking and always at the cutting edge of trends, there's also somewhat a reticence to change the structure of the industry. So things like seasons, I mean, they're a very new concept, the idea that you only have 2 seasons in a year, and that exists to accommodate the current means of production. But really, we found a big divide actually. It was very polarizing. So we had a lot of designers who were like, this is incredible, this is the future of how I want to work, I want to involve my customers more in my products. And we also found some other companies who seemed more worried about what it would do rather than excited about the new possibilities.
So they were just scared of innovation and disruption and what that would mean?
Yeah, I think so. The fact that they would have to evolve. I mean, I think it's like any industry. There's people who are very much forward thinking, and then there's the people who could still be huge companies but are not necessarily looking at the future. And
you've decided to be located in Somerset House.
Yeah.
Was that a strategic decision, or how did that come about?
In some ways, yeah. So I think Somerset House is really the home of British fashion until now. It's been where every fashion week has the main catwalks is at Somerset House, and the British Fashion Council are based there. So for us, it seemed like a logical step was to kind of go to where the home of fashion was, to try and change it there rather than positioning ourselves externally. Also, something that we're very passionate about is the idea that our production process is transparent, and by being based at Somerset House, it means people can come and visit us, they can see how everything's made, and they can also, it's quite an exciting idea that the Industrial Revolution is bringing things more closer to consumers. It's not putting the factories on the outskirts or in Vietnam or places like that. It's really bringing production close to the customer.
And transparency you have mentioned, so it's quite important to the company, and transparency with your production being in Somerset House, just being so close to you.
Yeah.
And can you talk a bit more about that, and what's the trend there? What do you expect to see more?
So there's a big film that's just come out called The True Cost, which is about the supply chain of the fashion industry. I think that's going to have quite an interesting impact on the industry as well. People are talking about it quite a lot. I think transparency is a huge trend in fashion. People realise that in order for Primark to exist, there's a whole unsustainable manufacturing process in the background that is supporting that, and that really, if you look deeply into where your products come from, and that's already happened a lot in food and other industries, and I think clothing's one where that's catching up now, and people want to know what the impact of their clothing is.
Does it affect your pricing strategy in terms of the transparency, or how does that work?
So our pricing strategy at the moment has been primarily because we're such a small company, and we've been, it's a price point that we're trialling at, but ultimately we think that the whole industry, even at a lower price point, is going to need to be much more transparent. So right now I'd say that our clothing is a premium product. It's not something that I expect people currently shopping at Primark to buy, and because they won't be able to afford it potentially. But ultimately we do want to bring that price point down to be able to address more customers. But I think also there's going to have to be an element of customers recognising that the only reason that clothing exists at that price is because it's been made in very poor conditions.
And are we going to see you offline, online? Are we going to see you in both dimensions?
In both dimensions. I think for us, physical retail is really important. It's a much richer experience for people, and it also really shows the transparency. I think if you're an online site only and you're selling today, it's much harder to have a deep engagement with customers, and it's also much harder for them to see the transparency. If they can actually come and see where stuff's being made, I think that's a much stronger message than if you go on a site, because ultimately you can't be sure how that's happening.
Yeah, and they appreciate the touch and the feel, and
Absolutely.
actually that they see the production just at the background.
Yeah.
I guess that has a powerful effect and experience to your consumer.
Absolutely.
So who is your consumer, and how like all of this connection and ever-connected customer, how do they come into play?
I suppose there's a lot of ways that I think that the consumers that we've had so far has been quite a varied group of people, just because being based at Somerset House means that we reach an audience that probably isn't our typical consumer. But we've been surprised by how excited a lot of because the typical person at Somerset House is not a millennial, they're older. And we've been really interested to see how they engage with the products, and the fact that a lot of them probably know how to knit and are really excited about the idea of seeing how these machines do it, and still appreciate the product even though it's not necessarily something that we targeted at them initially.
So you're constantly discovering like who your customer is.
Absolutely.
And in terms of the locations that you're going to choose, where do you think that would be, like across London? Are you going to start with London and the UK, and then you're going to do the expansion internationally? What are your plans?
So we're starting with London and the UK, and I think we're going to initially expand into the different fashion capitals. For us, it's really important that this is a product that is fashion based, and that it's a product that the fashion industry is comfortable with, because if you look at companies like Teespring or Spreadshirt, they offer customers the opportunity to customise a product and put things on a t-shirt, but ultimately that they give so much freedom that the quality of the product that's produced is quite low, and it ends up being a niche product that doesn't really impact the industry. We really want to make sure that what we produce can have a change on the industry, and for that we need to work with the industry. It's not something where we're just going to, it doesn't work that way. If you want to change things, you've really got to involve everyone, and I think for us it's really exciting to make sure that our product is a fashion product that we can involve fashion designers in and work with them.
Well, it's marrying the old and the new, which is very important. And I think it's super important what you're saying, learning from both worlds and learning from fashion, but then bringing some innovation and technology and disruption into the way that they are thinking. What about PR and marketing? What are your views on that? What are your views on traditional models? How are you going to take Knyttan, marketing and PR strategy?
Yeah. So I think for us, physical retail is a strong element of that marketing and PR. I think you get a lot more feedback from customers doing it that way, and you reach broader audiences that you wouldn't necessarily reach on online marketing. And I think traditional online marketing is becoming increasingly crowded, and it's harder to use. And using things like social media is a much more interesting way of reaching consumers. And it also means you can reach people who are really interested in it. And I think marketing is often described as targeted, but really it's about finding people who care about what you do. And it's not necessarily a cynical activity of targeting people. It's more of looking for the people who are actually going to care about your products and about your company.
So it's all about the ambassadors and just creating ambassadors of your brand. And I guess product is important, design is important. What are your priorities? What do you think will make it click?
So I think particularly for our company, we're working with quite a few designers, and it's also an element of millennial trends in general, which is that the more information you have, the more important searchability becomes, and ultimately curation of that information. So for us, the really important thing is how we curate the designers we work with, how we choose them, the products we do with them, and moving forward, how we expand that whilst maintaining the quality. And that's really what people are looking for, I think, is not to be told what they should have, it's to be given a curated set of choices so that they have a range of products or designers to look at, which are all good, and they can pick something that they prefer from it. They don't want to be told what to buy, they want to be told, here's a good range of things to choose from. And I think that is very important.
Being part of the process, and as you said, personalization and curation is something that we came across a lot. What is the ambition of the company for the next 12 months? How do you see it?
I mean, so over the next 12 months, we are doing a big relaunch of our company in October. So the initial launch we did last year was kind of a trial for us. It was a way of testing the technologies we'd built, but also testing, were people interested in this? Is it something that people wanted? And we got a lot of incredibly valuable feedback from doing that. So now we're taking the company to a point where we can relaunch and have something scalable and take it to a much broader audience.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you, Hal. And this is it for today, and see you next time.